All right, welcome back to the WatchWell Podcast. We've got another episode for you. My name is Parker, and this is my co-host, Nik. Nik, how's your week going, buddy?
It's going pretty well. Yours?
It's going really, really well. Really well. Big week, busy week. Ready for tonight for the podcast.
Yeah, I can say that this is definitely one of the highlights. It's fun to talk about this stuff. It'd be fun even if it was just movies, but the way that we, talk about it and connect it to our faith, it's definitely a highlight of the week. That's for sure.
Yeah. Cool, man. So, Dark Knight Rises. Initial thoughts.
Yes, sir. Initial thoughts? Well, actually, I don't want to get to my initial thoughts yet.
Okay, fair enough.
Because some people might be surprised by my initial thoughts, so I don't want to get to that yet.
Uh-oh, now I'm nervous.
Especially given what I admitted last week about The Dark Knight. But let's look at the rating and at some of the content warnings and things like that. So The Dark Knight Rises, released in July of 2012, 4 years after, almost 4 years to the day after The Dark Knight was released. Came out the same summer as The Avengers, a couple months after the first Avengers, and it was rated PG-13 for intense sequences of violence and action, some sensuality, and language.
No intense menacing.
No menace.
No menace.
There's no menace, although Bane's pretty menacing.
Yeah, he's pretty menacing.
But apparently this did not meet the threshold for including menace in the description there. And then Common Sense Media, click on it here, ranks the official rating. So you've probably caught on by now if you're listening, but there's an official rating from Common Sense, and then there's a parent rating and a kids rating. The official rating from Common Sense is ages 15 and up, which is the exact same as The Dark Knight, and older than what it said for Batman Begins. The parents say ages 13 and up, and the kids say ages 12 and up. So what do you think about that?
No, I think I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think
15 or 13 and 12?
Well, I guess when I say I agree, I was talking more towards what we said about The Dark Knight. And I think that was, if I'm remembering correctly, that was the younger age. Was it 12?
That's what kids said. I think kids said 11 and up.
For The Dark Knight or for Dark Knight Rises?
For Dark Knight.
Dark Knight,
because I could go back and look to be sure, but
we should go back because we both agreed that the kids got it right, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
So I think that I would agree that the kids got it right again.
Okay, let me see here. It looks like, man, wouldn't it be awesome if we had like a research person?
That'd be great
on our episodes. That would be good. Yeah, ages 12 plus for The Dark Knight. So yeah, we both agreed with that with the kids. And yeah, I agree again on The Dark Knight Rises. There is a little bit more language, nothing extreme, but a little bit more than what's in The Dark Knight. So, I mean, there's that, but I still agree 12 and up should be a good number to stand by.
Yeah, this one's just different, I guess in the nature a little bit, because this is not as. So we talked about the difference between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, where the evil was just different. So I think one of the things that I said was, in Batman Begins, the scary images and stuff were more like monsters with the Scarecrow character. Monsters and dark and more Halloween-esque, frightening images. The Dark Knight was just the psychosis and the how evil the Joker was. So it was a little bit, I guess, a different type of scary. I guess more.
For sure.
I would say Batman Begins was more horror, and then Dark Knight was more realistic. I mean, I know that it was drug-induced hallucinations in Batman Begins, so that would be realistic. But in terms of what in terms of what you're seeing on screen, it was more monsters and
Right.
ghouls.
It's about fear.
It's about fear, right? And and the hallucination brought out that drug brought out your fear.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of going back the other way to a different type of scary with The Dark Knight and then The Dark Knight Rises, because now we're not talking about someone who is just psychotic and wants evil for evil. We're talking about a group of people
Back to the League of
Shadows who are very strategic in burning the world down.
Right. They have a purpose behind it where the Joker just wanted to watch it happen.
Yeah. There was a power kind of tactics related organized crime, more in that realm instead of, like you said, just watching it burn for the sake of it burning.
Right. Would you say that in some ways The Dark Knight Rises is a little bit of a hybrid
I would agree.
style between the Batman Begins and The Dark Knight?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I'm trying to
probably on purpose. I would imagine.
I would imagine. Nothing in these movies is on accident. We've been over that, but
yeah,
I think I'm trying to see I think it leans more Batman Begins than it does Dark Knight. I would say it is a hybrid, but it would lean more Batman Begins than it would Dark Knight. Because
I think that's on purpose too.
Okay.
I think that's
fair
on
enough.
purpose too.
And
I don't know for sure, but that's my assumption. I think it's on purpose.
Yeah.
But yeah. So what are your initial thoughts?
Oh, I asked you first. No, that's okay. My initial thoughts of the movie are, so we talked about The Dark Knight and how epic that movie was in all categories. We talked about how Batman Begins and how it's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, start to a superhero origin story.
Yeah. I believe I said it was
right.
the best.
Right. But I'm saying one, if not, we'll leave it up to debate. I would say that The Dark Knight Rises had the potential to be that good, as The Dark Knight. But if we give The Dark Knight 5 out of 5 stars, I'm giving The Dark Knight Rises 4 out of 5 stars.
That's fair.
Because it's still epic. It's still in its own class of movie. I think it fit the trilogy. It was the best conclusion for the trilogy with what they had to work with. With the death of Heath Ledger, and I think you mentioned in the last podcast that there was a different script potentially that was hinted at some way or another.
I don't know that it was a different script necessarily, just different thoughts on where the story would go from The Dark Knight.
Right.
Yeah.
So with all of that being said, I would say 4 out of 5.
Okay.
But I don't know if with the death of Heath Ledger, following that movie, I don't know if it's possible to get 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
To their defense.
So I want to say before I actually give my opinion. So I'm still giving an opinion, but is my name right in the thing?
Is your name right?
Yeah. Can you see my name in the video?
No.
Okay, good. Anyway, regardless of that, sorry for that little detour. Distraction. So I'll say this first. This is a really good movie. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it right there. I'm gonna say that first. However, so I went and saw this opening weekend. It wasn't opening night because it was all sold out, and I saw this on the 8-story high IMAX screen, so a couple scenes. And I will say, when I walked out of the theater, I don't think I've ever been more disappointed in a movie.
Wow.
And it's directly related to how high my expectations were.
Those are big words, man.
If I didn't have such high expectations, I wouldn't have felt that way. But like I said last time, The Dark Knight is my absolute favorite movie, and it's not even close. So here I am. I'm so excited to see this movie because it's the follow-up to the movie that, in my opinion, is the best I've ever seen, right? And so then I watch this, and it's just good. And I mean, that reality, I've never been more disappointed. And so one of the things that kind of bothers me about it is it comes across like a movie that has very talented people involved that never wanted to make it. Like it comes across as like, so Christopher Nolan is an incredibly talented filmmaker, and he makes this movie work for what it is. He makes a very good movie, but it just doesn't seem like a movie that he actually wanted to make when I watch it. And I can go more into that in a little bit if it needs more explanation than that, but that's how I felt about it. That's kind of my opinion about the movie. It's a good movie that seems like the filmmakers would have been happier if they didn't have to make. That's just, I don't know. What do you think of that?
I mean, it's shocking. I think that's yeah. I would have not have guessed that it would have been that harsh of a review from you.
Yeah.
But I can understand it. I can understand that you came off of The Dark Knight and then wanted the escalation, and when it wasn't there, you were disappointed. I could see that for sure.
So I can appreciate it a lot more now than I could when I first saw it. Like I enjoy watching it now. I enjoy the movie. I've seen it. I even went and saw it again in theaters, even being that disappointed in it, because I still recognize it as a good movie. It was just, it just did not live up to the high expectations. And to be fair, I don't think any movie could have lived up to the expectations that I had.
I think that's fair. I'm glad you said that, because I that's kind of what I was saying. Between the two movies, The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. So
yeah,
that's good.
So there's a couple spots in the movie, and I don't want to ruin it for anybody if they didn't see these things, but like so this is different than Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, and The Dark Knight. It just seems like there's some dialogue, there's some scenes that just didn't need to happen, and there's some plot holes there that they never care to explain. Like, how did Bruce, with no money, get back from the pit? How did he travel across the world and get back to Gotham with no money and no resources?
Mm-hmm.
So they never explain anything like that. He just rises from the pit, and then he's back in Gotham. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another, after that, there's a scene that looks like, there's two scenes that look like they're out of order with each other.
Which ones?
Like, so Bruce talks to Miranda, and then when he's in the bat suit, he's talking to James Gordon and asks where Miranda is.
Okay. I didn't catch that.
It looks like those two scenes in editing were supposed to be flipped.
Interesting.
So just little things like that would not happen at all in The Dark Knight or in Batman Begins. So that's another reason for kind of why I'm so harsh on it, even though I still acknowledge I enjoy watching it.
So is the Joker still your favorite villain out of the trilogy?
Yeah. So are you saying you like Bane?
I really like Bane, and I know that puts a target on my chest because Bane is like, with the voice and the mask and everything, he's pretty he finds himself the butt of a lot of jokes. Let me just say that. But I think the characteristics of Bane, I don't know how else to say it, but He's just a bad dude, and it's not. I actually think that he can do more damage than the Joker can in terms of just characters, because he has training, he has tactics, he has motive, he is powerful in terms of his physique, and he can fight, and the Joker is just crazy. And in terms of capabilities, I think Bane could crush the Joker.
Oh, for
absolutely,
sure.
just crush the Joker and could wreak havoc on on Gotham, I guess, would be what we're talking about. More so than the Joker could.
Joker's all about psychological warfare.
Yeah,
like
but
he's all about getting in your head.
But
he's
you can't say
happy if he was...
you can't say more because that's the entire that's part of the plan of what Bane does in terms of psychological warfare. It's getting the people to believe the heroes are corrupt. So I guess in a way you could say that Bane completes what Joker started.
In a sense,
in a sense,
he continues on that legacy of all of your heroes are evil, all your heroes are corrupt.
Right. The Joker
Jim
was
Gordon,
just
Harvey
the Joker
Dent,
was after the best of them, and Bane went for everyone else.
Joker caused, for the good guys, Joker caused the heroes to become corrupted.
Right.
And Bane
revealed
that corruption to the world.
Right.
Or to Gotham, not necessarily the world, but to Gotham.
So,
yeah, that is a nice little... I've never really thought of that before, but that is a nice little extension from The Dark Knight.
Right.
And how they play on that.
Yeah, that's really fun to think about.
Which has the better opening scene? The introduction to Joker in The Dark Knight, so the bank robbery, or the plane crash with the introduction to Bane?
Well, let's define better.
I don't know. Well, opinion. I don't
opinion.
Know.
I guess.
I
guess cinematically, it's hands down the scene with Bane.
Okay.
Hands down. No, not even a comparison. The way they filmed it. I mean, I was even talking to my wife Kayla as we were watching it, and I was like, I want to be in the room where someone walks in, sits down with the script, and says, "We're gonna fly a plane over another plane, attach it to the other plane, and we're going to pull in flight. We're going to pull the bottom plane vertical instead of horizontal. The wings are going to snap off, and we're going to jump down the tube and rappel from the plane above."
Right. And almost none of it. I'm sure some of it's CGI. But
of course.
None of it. Well, I mean, they really did fly two planes, and they
right.
really did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
I mean, like, it's...
Yeah. I wanted to be in that boardroom or whatever where the guy said that, and then I want to see all of the other people's reactions.
Yeah, and the thing is that can't happen in a boardroom. That happens with just a group of people who love what they're doing sitting around a table.
Oh yeah.
Like that can't happen. Now, when they go to Warner Brothers and say, "We need the budget for this scene, and here's what we're going to do."
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be crazy. But that's also what I appreciate. I think you saw this a couple weeks ago too, but last weekend I saw Top Gun Maverick.
Great movie.
Yeah, and that's what I appreciate about that movie is all of the actors had to actually learn to fly those planes in order to get their parts.
Well, there's a whole slew of reasons on why Top Gun Maverick is great.
Yeah, and we'll probably do an episode on that.
Right.
Maybe the next episode, I don't know. But I just appreciate that aspect of filmmaking when the actors and filmmakers come together to make something that seems impossible, but to make it as real as they possibly can for the audience.
Right.
I just really like that.
Well, you saying that kind of gets me thinking. In The Greatest Showman, with Hugh Jackman, there's a scene, and maybe you can help me remember how it's worded, but he says,
I've not seen it, so I won't be able to help
you
at
haven't
all.
seen it?
Nope.
Oh, okay. So there's a scene, and I'm going to try to do the best I can because it's a really good scene where Hugh Jackman is in an argument with another character, and pretty much the character is I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's a critic or a reporter, and the reporter is talking to Hugh Jackman's character in the movie P.T. Barnum about ripping people off, where the circus is all fake. It's all fake. And P.T. Barnum's response is, people pay me for the pleasure of being hoodwinked.
It's kind of like wrestling.
It's like the WWE. It's pretty much all video.
Yeah.
Because video is all fake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, to some degree, the entertainment that we consume is not real. Or to a lot of the degree is not real. It's we want to escape reality in some way, shape, or form, to go into another realm. And that's why video is so powerful, because you can actually make that other realm feel real.
Yeah.
But it's not.
And we want to, there's like the escapist aspect where we want to escape the real world, but we don't want to see something that doesn't feel real. Like, we still want the world we're escaping to feel like it's real.
So what would you, I guess, looking through the lens of our face, what would you call that? Oh man. We want reality, but it's on, like, I guess, does it go back to the fall where Adam and Eve are chilling in the garden, and God says, you can do what you want, but not that tree.
Mm-hmm.
And what does the serpent say to Eve?
You can be like God.
You can be like God, right? So is it that if we're looking at this through the lens of our faith, is it that we want our created reality? Is that part of our fallen nature where we want to leave the reality that God created and we want to exist in the reality of our own creations? And technology is a way to do that. Do you think there's any little bit of that is true?
I think it could be. It could very easily be true that escapist mentality is to try to get away from the reality that our world is fallen. And even if we're if we're looking for another world, like we're looking for a different version of reality, even if that reality is just as debased and awful as ours, we still want to jump into it because it's different than ours. And we're not, even though we're watching something happen, so like something blows up on the TV screen, we're not actually experiencing that trauma, right? We're not actually experiencing that pain. So, and we get to escape it. We get to escape from our own pain to watch something happen on screen. So I think that escapism can definitely go back to the fall, and even there's a kind of, I mean, I'm kind of insulting us here, but this is also kind of why we don't just watch the movies for pure entertainment, but we try to connect them back, because it goes both ways. But there's kind of a laziness to entertainment. Like there's a consumer, there's just a consumer nature, and that's kind of present.
It's actually kind of funny. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
You're good. No, go ahead.
What I was going to say is you say that there's a consumer nature to it, but I would also say that there's a what would you call that? Like we see this so we see this in Hollywood a lot, and I think we've mentioned it before on the podcast, where original content just doesn't exist anymore.
Or very little. Very little.
And it's Batman 2022.
Right.
It's the 78th Marvel film phase 2, phase 3,
we're remaking a 36-year-old.
Yeah,
movie.
like A Star is Born, or all of these remakes. The Matrix was rebooted recently.
Top Gun Maverick.
As good
as it is.
As good. Yeah. So I think that there's, I mean, and we can save that like for the Top Gun movie. We can save that for the podcast that we do on Top Gun, because I think that there's still a difference there. But I'm also biased because I like the movie. So I think that I think that puts itself in a different category. But I would say that I think it's a laziness on Hollywood where they just go after the low-hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the blame is on us, to your point, because we let them.
Yeah, it's what we want to watch.
If we want to punish them and force them to create better content and original content, we need to stop paying them money for content that we've already seen that's just a little different.
But that requires us to learn new characters. That requires us to dive into worlds we aren't familiar with, when we could just jump into this, like you kind of said, the 78th Marvel movie. We already know the characters and we already know the world, right? We can just jump right into it with a new story on that. It's kind of like movies are becoming just longer TV series.
Yeah. I wonder what the pull for that is, because it didn't used to be that way.
No. I think it's just people go to them.
Do you think that it's the do you think I guess do you think it's going to die out? Do you think being original in movies and stories is going to go away? Do you think that it's...
No.
You don't think so?
No.
I worry about that. I'm going to be honest. I worry that for the rest of our lives, we're going to be watching Captain America and Iron Man. Well, not Iron Man, but Marvel.
Well, there'll be a new Iron Man at some point.
They'll have to be.
2040, they're going to reboot the whole thing.
Yeah, we'll have to rewatch all of it
at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I think one thing you always have to remember is that at one point, all of these current sequels were original. At some point. Right?
Right.
So, like, even if you just look at it from... So, like, for example, at some point, Harry Potter was brand new.
Correct.
When it was a book written and published, it was a brand new thing. And it just happened to catch everyone's attention and spawn all of these different movies in this long universe, because people continued to go back and to see it over and over again because they related to and liked the character. Yeah,
and don't get me wrong, I want to be clear. I am not bashing original content that was produced in a comic or a book and then it was created, it was turned into a movie. I'm not saying that that's wrong.
Just seems like there's an absence of
it's when the original goes away, and maybe it's there. It's just harder to find because it's not marketed the same. You know.
And this weekend, there's the new Jurassic World movie.
I know, another one. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's definitely. Yeah.
It's kind of a bummer. Like I was like. Do you think as consumers we fear the end of a story? We just don't want things to end? Or do you really think it just boils down to laziness and not wanting to learn new characters?
I think it's a little bit of all of that.
Because I'm wondering if it's more. I don't want that to end. At least when I watch something that I really, really enjoy, you know, I'll think in my head, I'll be like, I could watch this for ever.
Yeah.
You know, like Top Gun Maverick. I would have sat through a 5-hour movie. It was that good, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I would have sat through a 5-hour movie, and I probably would buy it and watch it 3 or 4 times a year if it was 5 hours long.
But I'll add to what you're saying is I don't know that we're afraid for things to end. It's just maybe this. So I think we're afraid of things ending badly.
Okay.
So I think that can go back to our human nature as well.
No, 100% agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
So how often is it from an entertainment perspective, you've invested all this time in a TV series or movie series, and then you actually get to where they're building up and they're saying, here's the end, this is the last thing, and it's the biggest disappointment you've ever seen. And it like so many there's so many long TV shows that were so good end in like a whimper. Like, oh, it's over now. And I think maybe that's it. Maybe we just don't. We're not only afraid that that the series or that the characters we love or the things that we enjoy watching will end badly, and maybe that even goes back to worrying about, aging and the end of us.
That's kind of what I was going to get at is if the story ends, the characters end and they cease to exist. There's no eternal life. It reminds us, and and what's peddled today is that secular worldview is that it's you die and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it is since we're image bearers of God that something doesn't sit right with that. So when our series and our favorite franchises end, trilogies and all of those movies end, there's something that doesn't sit right because the truth is God exists, and if you believe in Jesus, you won't ever end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, which is kind of interesting because to get back to The Dark Knight Rises, Christopher Nolan was pretty adamant that he'll never do a Batman movie again,
which is really refreshing.
His story is over.
Right.
He's done. And I don't know for sure, but I remember hearing rumors that it was either Christian Bale or Christopher Nolan. I don't know which, but one of them was offered something like $40 million or something to come back to the series before they went the direction of Ben Affleck and making those movies,
which were terrible.
They turned it down, and they turned it, and whichever one of them was turned it down.
Yeah,
because they saw The Dark Knight Rises as the end of their story. They weren't they weren't trying to become the comic book version of film. They had a specific story, and they saw it as done.
And I think that's part of the power in it,
Yeah,
I really do. Is he drives off at the end with the bat and explodes, thus saving Gotham, fulfilling his purpose as Batman, and was now able to meet up with Selina Kyle and rekindle a relationship with Alfred in the way that Alfred, in a way that gave the most value back to Alfred.
Right. Gave him the most peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think part of that reconciliation and the proper, okay, so you talked about the beginning scene, the ending scene. Do you think that it was best for the series, I guess? Do you think that it was the best ending scene for the series? Or rate the ending scene? It's hard to say the best when there's not another to compare it to, but...
Yeah. It's hard to say. This is going to sound really strange, but I think I would have liked it better if Batman actually died, if Bruce actually died.
Okay. I had that thought. I'm glad he didn't.
Right.
Because the reason why I'm glad he didn't is because in Batman Begins, if you remember back to the first podcast, we were talking about him being on the plane, where he was trying to be a symbol, and he was trying to. I think Gotham. I think the portrayal of Gotham being so bad that one man had to give away his identity, or take on a new identity, become something else in order to save Gotham, was able to and then go through all of what Bruce did throughout the 3 movies, and then the final scenes, seeing him take off that identity and be able to now be Bruce.
Yeah.
I think that was really a really good ending, because we talked where the identity is Batman. It's definitely Batman, from the latter half of Batman Begins and then all of the Dark Knight. It's not Bruce Wayne being Batman, it's Batman being Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
That's the mask, is Bruce Wayne. And at the end of, and I think you see that identity reconciled at the end of The Dark Knight Rises, when he's sitting at the table, like I was saying, and now he finally gets to be Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good ending.
Which is what Alfred hoped for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of Catwoman?
I think Anne Hathaway does a really good job. It very different than what so I'm trying to think back to when I first saw it, what I thought. Because I'm a little more jaded now, and I've seen it so many different times, but I think she was a little bit different than I expected.
Do you think
she fits into that world that they created very well? But she's just like every character except for Batman himself, maybe. Every character that they did in this series was very different than any other version of those characters that have ever existed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Just, you mean like having Batman require someone to help him?
No, I mean so just talking about Bane, for example. Bane, in every other version that Bane has ever existed in, is nothing like this version of Bane.
Oh, okay.
This is same with the Joker. Previous versions of the Joker aren't anything like this version of the Joker.
Right, okay.
They look different. They act different. And I felt like Catwoman fit that just the same. She's very different, in my mind, from what I was expecting. So, if you go back to...
Well, she was definitely
Batman
more a
Returns.
real depiction than Halle Berry's Catwoman.
Oh, yeah. Let's not talk about that one. But...
Right.
even going back to... what was it? Batman Returns?
Yeah.
In 1990 or whenever it was. Michelle Pfeiffer's version of Catwoman. Catwoman has always been the black leather suit that no one would ever wear and isn't functional at all.
Right.
But this was a different version. It was still a black suit, but it was functional. And I just Anne Hathaway and this version of Catwoman was different than I was expecting. But I liked it. I think it's better.
You do?
Yeah.
See, I don't think that character is necessarily needed.
Probably not needed, but then who does Bruce find his peace with at the end?
Right.
Who does he run away with?
Right. And I don't know what I think. I go back and forth because I think it was a cheap I think it was like a last minute ditch effort to throw a love interest in because Rachel died.
But he had 2 love interests then.
You know what I mean? I think that it would have been better for them across. It was, I don't know. I kind of feel like, or at least I kind of think that it was like, well, we need a love interest to wrap the story up, and it's going to be Catwoman. It just seemed lazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seemed lazy. It was almost like they tried to undo the great loss of Rachel.
Maybe.
And it seemed very lazy to me.
Yeah. The whole story with the
has
clean
nothing to
slate,
do with it has nothing to do with Anne Hathaway's ability, because I think she did a phenomenal job as Catwoman. I just think that having from a director or a producer, whoever, a script writer, I just don't think the character's needed for the story. I don't think it adds anything.
Yeah. And the whole story with the clean slate that Catwoman is after seems out of place.
It
doesn't make it. Yeah.
It's like her own little side problem, and then she's only there when the plot needs it. I know that sounds obvious because, of course, movies are going to follow a plot, but it just seemed picky and choosy, I guess.
Yeah. And that's kind of the way I felt like with a lot of the movie, to be honest, is just the scene, I just lost it. Maybe I'll come back to it in a little bit. But so in my mind, so many of the scenes were just unnecessary. So much of the dialogue, and the biggest thing with the dialogue is too often in this movie they're telling you what to think rather than showing you.
Okay.
So using the clean slate as an example, you never see what this thing is. You never see why it's valuable. You never see how it works. You never see anything about it. They just talk about it. And it's supposed to be something, this wonderful thing that Catwoman's after that's going to give her freedom.
But why do we care?
Yeah, why do we care?
Yeah, like why? Yeah, I kind of agree more with your harsh opinion, not necessarily of the movie, but of the Catwoman character and the value that the character adds to this movie. I don't think it's worth it, and I think that just randomly the Scarecrow's kind of back too, and he just happens to be the judge. So I don't know. What do you make of that?
Interesting. So there's a really interesting
Cillian
fact
Murphy's
about
great,
that.
but
yeah, but did you know they originally thought about using like holographic technology and CGI to make the Joker the judge?
They should have done that.
They thought about it, but they ended up not doing it because Christopher Nolan, and this is rumor, so maybe it's not even true, but Christopher Nolan thought that it would be disrespectful to the Joker, to Heath Ledger's legacy and the performance that he gave in that film to make something that wasn't natural. So he decided not to do it.
Which is also respectable.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's tough.
But even like that scene, that's another one of those things where they could have at least shown Dr. Crane coming out of Arkham when Bane blows stuff up, right? They could have at least shown you that Dr. Crane is still a character in this world.
And why he
just shows up as the judge?
Why is not only and there's even two steps there. Not only should they have shown him leaving Arkham, they should have done something to where like Bane hands him the gavel. Like, why does he get to be the judge?
Right. Yeah.
Why not somebody else? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I know that Heath Ledger died, and you want to respect his legacy and the performance that he did, but no mention of the Joker.
Right.
Like zero. Like that just never happened.
Yeah. So where is he?
And I know this is, and I know that this is years and years and years or whatever.
8. I think in the movie they say 8.
So 8 years after the Joker. Yeah, it just seemed. I tend to agree. I still stick with my original statement of 4 out of 5 stars because I think it's the best they could have done with following up Heath Ledger's performance and different things like that. Because go ahead.
There's another scene. So the whole scene where I don't know if it's like FBI agents or military people that come and talk to Gordon, and they talk to what's Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character's name? Blake. Is that right? Officer Blake. Is that his name? He's
Robin?
later. You don't find that out to the end, but
Right.
But I think his name's Blake. But regardless of that,
Yeah, I can't think.
like there's those military agents who come in, talk to them, and they go meet in the building where all of the executives of Wayne Enterprises are staying, and they devise this plan, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these guys just get shot. Do you know what I'm talking about? And they're the guys that get hung from the choppers.
Yeah.
After they die.
Mm-hmm.
The way they died was just pointless. Like, it was, okay, we have a plan, turn around, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't an epic battle, it wasn't a fight, it was just, oh, here's Bane's guys out of nowhere, and they shoot these two guys. And now our plan is ruined. What do we do now?
And
like,
and
there was no time for that to breathe.
Yeah, and the whole point of it's tough because I think the plot, or at least the idea of the movie is good.
Definitely.
The idea, where they wanted to go was good enough.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you even communicate that, because the whole idea of sustainable energy, the nuclear bomb or the neutron bomb or whatever they call it, with Bane and the corruption and the dynamics between the Joker going after the best of them, and then Bane going after the ones that pretty much the hypocrisy of the heroes.
Mm-hmm.
I thought all that was great.
Yeah.
And how it was exposed, and how they released everyone from Arkham, because anarchy's better than these people who think, what is Selena Kyle's line where she says, a storm is coming, and you're gonna reap the consequences of living so large with the rest of us having so little, something to that effect.
While leaving so little for the rest of us.
Yeah. Right.
And I want to come back to that in a second after you finish your thought, but go ahead.
Okay. And I think that all of that was good. I think all that's good.
Yeah.
Having the physicist, and but we haven't even gotten to my big issue with the movie yet.
Okay.
So go ahead and jump to yours, and then we'll come back to mine.
Man, I have so many thoughts going through my head all at the same time that I'm not sure which one I want to share. I know what I was thinking when I just said that, but so Catwoman saying, you're going to regret living so large while leaving so little for the rest of us. And then Bane breaking the prisoners out of, was it Blackgate? It wasn't Arkham. I think they called it Blackgate.
Yeah.
Prison, didn't they? It wasn't Arkham. So,
which maybe is why we didn't see Scarecrow come out, is because he was at Arkham.
Maybe. And I don't know. Tell me if you caught this or not. But Bane is not about anarchy. Bane is about Marxism. Bane is a Marxist socialist. And so was Catwoman.
I could see it from Catwoman more so than Bane. Describe what gave it away for Bane, because
So what is Bane's big... So he has two really big speeches to the city of Gotham, right? There's the one in the football field, and there's the one outside of the prison when they blow up the walls and everyone comes out. So the one in the football stadium, he talks about the liberation of the people of Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
And this is through eliminating the power structures and bringing down authority. He's talking about a rebellion, a revolution of the lower class of Gotham rising up and taking power and control of their city through this destabilization of Gotham.
Right. I guess that
that is the definition of Marxism.
You're right.
It's
which it's always wrapped. It's always that, but at the core, it's still a dictatorship or power by fear.
Right. So that comes out with.
So it's manipulation at its finest. It's you're in charge. How would you describe that? It's a form of mental slavery is really what it is.
Right. And what does he call Blackgate Prison? A symbol of oppression.
Right. You're right.
So Bane is basically creating. He's tempting Gotham's people with this vision of a Marxist utopia where the wealthy don't live large anymore, where their wealth and the freedom that they have to do what they want is redistributed to the lowly, to the oppressed in Gotham. Yet he does that through the guise of one of you holds the key to this detonator. This bomb is a symbol of your liberation, and one of you holds the key. But then what does Gordon say? Bane wouldn't let anyone else hold the detonator but himself.
Right.
And that was the reality. Bane, he promoted power to the people, but all that meant was power solely to me.
Right.
And that's all it meant, which is exactly the case for Marxism. It's just about destabilizing a society, and then even fewer people have the benefits of power and authority.
Correct. You're right. 100% right. Yeah. My big issue with the movie is, and this may be a stretch, okay? So tell me if you agree or disagree, but it even hints at when Bruce is learning about the child in the pit.
Mm-hmm.
That no man could ever climb out of that pit.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find out that a child climbed out of the pit.
Mm-hmm.
And then furthermore, we find out that it was a female child that climbed out of the pit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big twist of the movie, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that is realistic?
I think
do you
so.
think
in the way
that
they
is
described it?
You do?
Yeah.
You think that it's realistic? And maybe I missed what you got from how they described it, but what kind of sit wrong with me is it was kind of a push towards the whole men and women are the same, there's no difference, woman power kind of thing. It's hard for me to believe that fully grown men with increased muscle mass, yada, 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 Bane himself couldn't get out of the pit. But what, a 12-year-old girl could?
Well, so for one, you have to go back to the purpose of the hole, the opening at the top of the pit. It was to give people hope of escape, but that they were too fearful to try. And those that did try used a rope because they were scared of actually failing and falling all the way down. So the reason that Talia
mm-hmm.
was able to make the climb wasn't because she was a strong female. The only thing that separated her from the anyone else who tried was she made the climb without the rope.
No, I got all that.
She had no option. It was succeed or die.
And I got all of that, but in terms of realism, that that is not very believable.
I mean, even if it's the daughter of Ra's al Ghul.
Even if it's the daughter of Ra's al Ghul.
See, I just disagree with that. I don't understand why it wouldn't be believable within the framework that they developed.
I don't know. I just think
because
that
it's not like they didn't indicate that many people have tried in this way and failed. Like, even when Bruce fails, the reason given is because is essentially you have the rope. If you take off the rope, you're probably going to make it. But the prisoners in that prison are too fearful to make the climb without the rope.
No, and I can concede that logic where they framed it well, but it's still I still didn't like. How do I communicate that? It still sits wrong to say this is doable without an aid. I think it could have been done better. Okay. I mean, is that fair? Because it's doable without an aid, but nobody wants. And everyone that uses the aid can't do it. Just doesn't seem like a logical way to wrap a story to me. Where climbing a mountain with a rope, you're not going to be able to do it with a rope. But if you do it without the rope, you're going to do it. It just, if you have help or an assistive device, it just makes more sense that it would be easier.
I think you have to have the courage is more so what it was getting at. And these are prisoners who didn't have courage.
Right. But one of the main prisoners was the one who did everything.
But there's no indication that he ever even tried. You'd have to fill in gaps that aren't there to even think that he ever tried to get out of the prison.
So, I guess that's true. But that's kind of what you do when you dissect movies anyway.
Yeah. So I would say he probably never even tried. And I think that shows us even more about human nature is these people that were in prison were content to be there.
It's just hard for me to believe someone like Bane, who is the villain of the movie, 98% of the movie, he's the villain.
Yeah.
And he is the strong one. He's motivated, highly trained, claims that he is the League of Shadows.
He wasn't trained yet, though.
But didn't he wasn't trained?
He wasn't trained until after Talia escaped the prison and Roz came back and basically destroyed everyone except for Bane.
But he was her defender. So he was
her defender.
He was trained enough to whoop
that
everybody.
Tells you what his purpose was, right? That tells you what his goal was: protect her, make sure she gets out, not get himself out. He wasn't trying to get himself out. He wanted her to be safe and get out. And then as a reward for that,
I get that.
Roz came back and made Bane part of the League of Shadows. But it was after that.
I still think filling in the gaps is equal-sided. You're filling in the gaps to say that he didn't try, no differently than I'm filling in the gaps to say that it's kind of a dumb premise to say that, or it's a dumb metaphor, or it's a poorly crafted metaphor to get at courage or because it was very similar to Batman Begins in the fact of embrace your fear, and fear strengthens you. And I think it's just done better in Batman Begins as opposed to The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, I mean, I can say it's done better. I agree that it's done better. I think.
You think I'm being too real?
Do what?
You think I'm being too real?
Maybe. Yeah.
That's fair.
I mean, I think by all distinctions, I mean, Talia al Ghul is not just a normal, everyday 12-year-old.
Yeah, but if she grew up in a pit, she would have been.
But don't you think growing up in a pit, in a prison, would cause you to be different? Cause you to be more hardened, more callous?
But wouldn't you be able to say that about... I mean, they depicted that it was generations of people that lived in the pit. There would be more people that would have occurred to.
But based on the way I see it, at least when I watch the movie, it looks like to me that they're indicating that very few people even care to get out of the pit.
I mean, I think I have to acknowledge that. So, I think that is explained well. You're right. But, like, no differently than your issues with the scenes of Out of Order or just the no purpose. And maybe I'd have to rewatch it again to look more closely, but what is this rope connected to at the top to prevent them from falling? Just climb up the rope and get out.
The other thing about that rope is when they make the jump, you can literally see the rope pull down.
Right.
Get too tight and pull them down. You think, like, when Bruce makes that jump, he would feel the rope tug and be like, oh, I either need a longer rope or I need to do it without the rope.
Right. And I'm just saying that, like, just pull on the rope hard enough with everybody at the bottom to get one guy at the top. It's just like, what's the rope connected to? At some point, you're either going to run out of rope to protect you. You're either going to run out of... It's going to be... I guess the way I look at it is... Because the rope at some point, in order to catch, has to be higher than you, right?
Well, I think the rope was lower.
Was it?
Yeah, I think the rope was connected lower, and that's why it pulled down. I think it's a different rope than what Bruce... It has to be a different rope than what Bruce throws down into the pit when he gets out. Because he didn't make that climb with the rope.
So maybe it's more of like a legitimate like mountain climbing thing where as you go up, you
set
tether.
It up that way.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of... It should have been obvious that the rope wasn't helping.
Right. So then Bane becomes the owner of the prison, right?
Yeah. Because of his association with the League of Shadows.
Right. I don't know. I'm still not a fan of it, but
yeah,
you defended it well.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad.
Then we find out Talia is the secret orchestrator, strategy person who is the daughter of Ra's al Ghul.
Can we go backwards?
Of course.
Go like way, way, way backwards. So we're talking about a lot of things that we don't like, and I'm sure we'll get back to things that we don't like.
Right.
But I think the movie is like, it's one really bad thing that wasn't well thought out, followed by the incredible something, followed by something bad, followed by something absolutely incredible. And it's like a roller coaster because you see something awesome, like the opening scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move into other things that aren't quite as awesome. And then you get to something awesome again. And then it's that same cycle over and over again throughout the movie. And then you see scenes out of order and you see the worst death ever in any movie ever. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but I will say I absolutely love the scene where Batman comes back for the first time. So when he's chasing Bane's guys on they're on the motorcycles after they just went into the stock exchange.
Yeah.
And they're downloading. I love that scene.
Yeah. Real quick, can I throw in another hate?
Yeah, go for it.
Followed by something bad.
Sure.
The worst script writing ever in any movie is seen when Batman and Bane meet each other on like I guess I would say that it's the equivalent to like the
the steps,
like
the state house,
and it's
City Hall or whatever.
City Hall, yeah, whatever. And it's so you came back, and he's like, no, I came back to stop you. Like, it's just the worst. It's the worst.
Every time I see that, I'm like, wow, that took me out.
It is so bad.
Completely.
It is so bad.
But then 5 seconds later, when Batman repeats back to Bane what Bane said earlier, and he talks about, and then you'll have my permission to die.
That's great.
When he says that to Bane, calling back, that was awesome.
It's great.
What they should have Batman should have said nothing when they were on the steps of City Hall, and then just that should have been the first thing,
right?
As to Bane.
Would have been great.
I agree with you. That's just one of those scenes, and there's more of them. It just takes you out of the movie,
right?
And those types of scenes don't exist in The Dark Knight, and they don't exist in Batman Begins.
They don't. You're right.
So it's like
I'm still sticking with my 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a good movie.
I'm still sticking with my 4 out of 5. Based off of the idea of the movie, where there's the nuclear bomb and everything that we kind of already talked about.
Batman coming back after 8 years.
Yeah.
Like that idea.
But
then but the scene where Batman comes back, I love
that
scene.
They go down that alleyway and then the bat turns on and then he flies away.
Yeah. And awesome. Even before that, there's where
Kayla's over here nodding her head. She's like, I like that scene too.
You got the two. It shows the 2 police officers, and one of them's like, I don't know if he's a rookie, but he's a young cop.
Yeah.
And then the other one's like, you're in for a show tonight.
Yep, that's the great stuff.
Because he knows what's coming.
Yeah.
And the other guy doesn't. That's really cool. That's really funny.
Well, that does a good job at explaining the time that's elapsed.
Yeah.
Because now you have rookie cops. New officers and old officers, so the old officers know what has happened in the past with Batman, and the new officers don't. I think that's good stuff.
Yeah,
that's really good writing.
Yeah, and then so another scene that I thought was awesome was when they've actually made their way into City Hall. Batman has, pummeled Bane. His mask is broken and. He's in a ton of pain and he's breathing heavy. Bane is, and then Talia stabs Batman in the side, and then reveals the trigger, right?
Right.
And talks about the slow knife.
Mm-hmm.
And then you cut between that scene and then Gordon trying to get whatever that thing is that's gonna block the detonator from working onto the bomb. Right. He's trying to get going between those. I thought that was really well done too.
Right.
Like I feel like the tension there is really good. And then when Batman says too slow, I guess that knife was too slow or whatever he says. I thought that was really good too.
Yeah. I like that too. That was really good. Can we talk a little bit about the character who is in cahoots with Bane? Did you like that character? I forget his name, but he's the business guy at Wayne Enterprises. Tries to get asks to
awful character. Awful character.
Asks Bruce like, no, he's got to go.
Another absolutely
where's
pointless
Bane?
Character.
He's like, I'm in charge. But one of the coolest lines in the movie is when he says that, and then Bane puts his hand on his shoulder and says, do you really feel like the one in charge?
Right.
It's so good.
Right. That's good.
But tell me your opinions of his character, because
awful.
I go back and forth.
I hate that character. I think that's another pointless character that could have the idea of that character and the idea of somebody like that is a good idea, but the execution is absolutely terrible. Like nothing that character says feels like it means anything. It's only when Bane interacts with him that you actually feel anything.
And I think that's because there was no development of that character. Yeah. It was just, this is this character and believe it.
Yeah.
More like you were saying, where it's like they tell you what to believe instead of show you. Yeah. I think that it would have been a better choice to bring back the original guy that Bruce that Bruce fired and replaced with Fox.
Yeah, something like that. Something
different. Like that would have
Yeah.
been better.
I think they needed somebody from Wayne Enterprises so that they could get Bane and his army into like the armory, right, where all of the Batman weapons and
I mean, they definitely needed their inside guy. Yeah.
But the execution of that was just awful. It seems like a pointless character that doesn't add anything at all to the movie, which is a shame because he's not famous really, but the guy that plays that character is a really good actor. If he's in a couple other things, nothing's coming to the top of my head, but he's really good. He's a really, really good actor, and that character was just awful.
Real bad.
Yeah.
There needed to be, like, I can't say that it was a pointless character because some type of character had to fill that role.
Right.
It's different. My opinion of that is different than that of Catwoman. I don't even think Catwoman needed to be in the movie, and I don't think that Catwoman needed to even be replaced. I just don't think that character, like Catwoman, should even be in the movie. Outside of needing to build something for Bruce to run away with because they killed Rachel in the first movie or in the second movie. I think that this character actually had a purpose. They could have done it better. They could have written in a better backstory or storyline.
Giving you anything.
I felt more connected. To the goons that Joker hired at the beginning of The Dark Knight when they're robbing the banks. I felt more connected to those characters than I did that guy.
Because that's the difference between really, really good screenwriting and really, really bad screenwriting.
And I just remember back to when they're robbing the bank, and each one of them is telling you the story they heard from the Joker.
Yep.
And you start to piece together that the Joker is calculated more than he gives himself credit for in the first 2 minutes of the movie. Because these guys are saying like you know, whatever I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what they say, but pretty much like kill this guy after you do the job.
Right.
And that right there starts to get you thinking about the types of people that the Joker recruits. And then later in the movie, Batman says that.
Yep.
So
that's a big difference between The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises is every single idea gets a payoff in The Dark Knight. But they don't pay off everything in The Dark Knight Rises.
Right, because he's the kind of mind, he's a paranoid schizophrenic. He's the kind of mind the Joker attracts.
Right.
For the guy in the back of the ambulance that says has Rachel's name tag on.
Yep.
And you get that from like right after the opening credits. You don't know that you're getting that. Right. But you know, I felt more connected to those guys robbing those banks or the bank with a school bus with Joker, more so than this business guy at Wayne Enterprises.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Very, disappointing character. I mean, the business guy in Batman Begins wasn't on screen much more than the business guy in The Dark Knight Rises, but he was much more developed.
He was, and it was easy to not like him.
Yeah.
It's different. It's different when you write the character. So the first business guy, and I forget all their names. Yeah. But he had a relationship with Thomas Wayne. He wasn't the weasel the guy in The Dark Knight Rises was. There's an air of more respect for him saying, I want to get Fox out of here. He got worse and more easier to dislike as the film went on, as Batman Begins went on. But this other guy was he was like a low-level criminal that just got it was like hired for Wayne Enterprises almost. It was just
somehow made his way onto the
weaselly,
board.
or he wasn't like a respected. There wasn't like an air of respect for his position.
Yeah. The other question: how did Batman know where to walk on the ice without falling through?
Yeah.
Like right before that, we just watched somebody just take a step on the ice and fall right through.
Right.
And here Batman is walking like 200 feet across the ice. Like how, with no gadget. I mean, what? It's just another one of those things that they don't
And I know
explain.
that, and to go with that, I think that it's also cheap to do the. I mean, it's okay. So it's comedy, right? I get it. It's a cheap laugh where the Scarecrow is looking at Gordon, and they're like, "Oh, banishment or death."
Yeah, exile
or death or whatever. And Gordon replies and says, "You got another thing coming if you think we're walking on that out on that ice." And Scarecrow goes, "Okay, death." By exile.
Yeah.
That's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Definitely more dislikes than likes, but I still think the idea comes through and says it's good, 4 out of 5.
Well, that's the thing is when you have people as talented as the actors involved in this movie and as talented as Christopher Nolan, even though it wasn't as, well thought out or well structured, like I think the people involved in this movie can make anything good and watchable.
100% agree.
Like they're just so talented that even bad movies become good because they add their flair and they have their distinct things that they incorporate. It's just, I guess what I would say ultimately is, and that's kind of why I said this felt like a movie they never, at least from the director's point of view, it felt like a movie he never actually wanted to make, but he knew he had to finish his story, so he just wanted to get it over with and done. Like it seems like a movie that they wrote the screenplay and then went straight to filming rather than reading over the screenplay and making edits, making changes for things that didn't make sense. Oh, here's something that instead of saying it, we should just show, and replacing it with a different scene, and actually pouring over it over and over again to get all of the kinks and things out of the screenplay. It just seems like they went straight from, oh, here's our screenplay, now let's film it.
I agree with that.
Whereas The Dark Knight looks like something that they were genuinely proud of doing. Like, it's like while they were writing and creating this story for The Dark Knight and even Batman Begins, they were having the time of their life creating the story.
Yeah, I guess
they were going to spend as much time as possible to get it perfect.
I guess it's very similar. So, like right now, I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but it's the I don't know. I had a good one and I lost it, but it's like anything you do, where you start off and it's like all steams ahead and you have all the motivation, and then you get halfway through it and then it's like, I'm kind of over this.
Yeah.
Ready to move on.
It kind of seems that way. And I would imagine like,
and I know that's an oversimplification of what we're saying, because I really do believe that there's a lot of good about this movie. It's just when you do have high expectations, the bad shines brighter than the light.
For sure. And I would imagine like when you take that time to film a movie like The Dark Knight, to go through all of the process of making it absolutely perfect, and that includes the acting performance of Heath Ledger, and then this guy that you've spent all this time with taking part in this story dies.
Like, in real life, in real life dies,
Yeah. I'm sure they're revisiting kind of that story.
Is somber and tough.
It's probably not the most pleasant experience.
Right.
And I think everyone involved knew they had to, and they weren't necessarily opposed to it. It just feels like they didn't give it their all. Like they didn't give it everything they possibly could.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to leave it, because you have to as fans, you have to give grace somewhere, and a death is, especially with that talented of a person, and the value that Heath Ledger gave to the franchise, the trilogy it's really hard to follow that regardless. I mean, even if he didn't die, he probably would have been in the third movie.
Right. At least in some form. He might not have been the primary villain. I mean, who knows? But he would have been referenced. He would have had something to do with carrying that story forward. He would have had to have.
It's just crazy to me that and maybe this is something to talk about a little bit too, but you go from something as dark as the Joker, and comments like the night is darkest just before the dawn, and then you lie, and everything you do is based off of a lie that buys you 8 years of nothing.
Right. Somehow there's been
just
8 years of peace.
8 years of peace.
The cops haven't wondered, hey, where's Batman? Who was Batman? Could we launch it
there's no explanation of like I think you were about to say an investigation. There's no I think they talked a little bit about that maybe when Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character talked about them seeing Bruce Wayne and how he just kind of knew, and
the orphans,
and the orphans
knew.
And
but that's the difference, is at the very beginning of The Dark Knight, there's a guy that says, how's that investigation going? And he says, the investigation is ongoing. And then there's
Bigfoot and Elvis.
Yeah. Like, and that's when they don't need to know who Batman is. They're not hunting for him. All he's done is save the city from Ra's al Ghul.
Right.
At that point. And now here we are. They're investigating the Batman. And now we're supposed to believe that after he murders the district attorney of Gotham, or supposedly, that's what everyone's led to believe. He murders the district attorney of Gotham. We're supposed to believe that they're just okay with not finding him for 8 years. The investigation into the death of Harvey Dent is just over. They don't care.
Yeah, it's not even that they don't care. It's just that there's no. And obviously we're filling in a few gaps, because it's impossible to find Batman if Bruce Wayne stays Bruce Wayne.
But you would think that
at the same time,
some type of one, even a cop saying, "I want to find out who Batman is," or a cop on his own saying, "Who killed Harvey Dent?" Wanting to know who did that. Right?
I mean, even something as simple as pictures of the Batmobile,
right,
and then a leak that same model is built by Wayne Enterprise.
Yeah,
something. And I know that special projects or whatever they called that technology, whatever, was off the books, but there would have been a leak somewhere.
Yeah. Or I mean,
and they kind of hinted that at the guy. Was that in The Dark Knight, where he was like, "I want $10 million for the rest of my life"?
Dark Knight.
And then Fox was like, "So you're telling me that your boss is a secret vigilante that goes out at night and beats criminals to a pulp, and your plan is to blackmail that person?"
And now everyone believes he's killed Harvey Dent, and you're not going to bring that information forward.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, the second scene in the movie is a memorial for Harvey Dent. And wouldn't you think that a police officer or a government official, somebody, and I know it's Jim Gordon speaking and he knows what actually happened, but wouldn't you think at that event that somebody would reference the ongoing investigation to find the murderer of Harvey Dent?
Absolutely.
And they don't, there's nothing there at all. It's just, oh, we've had peace for the last 8 years. Crime is down.
Yeah.
But why? Why is crime down? And criminals aren't scared of anyone anymore because he's not coming out.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
And he's now a criminal. Wouldn't that empower criminals to, or at least the mob or somebody to
come back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. And maybe that's nitpicky. I don't know. But those are things that the Dark Knight, those are flaws that the Dark Knight didn't have.
Right.
Where everything in the Dark Knight makes sense.
But I will
It
say,
just doesn't.
Bane is better than the Joker as a character. Not as an acting performance, not as legendary as Heath Ledger's Joker was, but in terms of just the ferocity and the, making Batman meet his match, I think Bane's character did it better.
Well, I mean, it's just so different that I can't compare their style, because the Joker attacks Batman's mind and makes him question his very purpose, whereas Bane is a physical challenge that Batman has never faced before. And it's the first time that at least this version of Batman is actually challenged from a physical perspective.
Yeah, I think a physical perspective would have been Ra's al Ghul too.
Maybe.
I mean,
maybe
definitely not
sense,
as much as Bane, but still,
but like maybe in a sense of someone equal.
Yeah.
To Batman, but Bane is clearly stronger and faster than Bruce Wayne with a bum knee.
Right. And I mean, psychological warfare.
And a miraculously healed broken back.
Right. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
After walking 2,000 miles from who knows where and after climbing out of a pit.
I think the movie does a good job though at time.
What do you mean?
Just the demonstrating that time is elapsing, because it wasn't like that Bruce Wayne just happened to show back up the next day. Like, they did a good job at showing like this nuclear bomb's been rolling around for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I think that was okay.
Yeah.
But when you get into like Gotham and then the military and then the nation and like that kind of stuff got a little weird too, I think.
Yeah.
But do you want to fire off some questions? I know you don't have any. We didn't really discuss questions before, but if you had to think, I think we kind of talked a little bit about the endings of things and series, and those would be good ones to start with. We can make questions and put them on the Facebook page.
Yeah, we can do that. I guess my first question, and it might end up being the only question, I guess, I don't know, but so if we're looking for themes, if we're looking for symbolism or anything at all that we relate back to our faith, is there anything in this particular movie that sticks out to you? And I would ask that to a group, and right now I'll just ask it to you. Is there anything about this movie that sticks out to you that relates back to our faith?
I would say I think that one's tough, because I think there's a few different things in this movie that you could relate back to faith. I think we talked about death and the endings of things, and just as a trilogy as a whole. But if we looked at The Dark Knight Rises specifically, I guess the biggest thing that jumps out to me is redefining who you are, or finding yourself again, reconciliation with yourself. So like Bruce goes into the pit and he has to re-find his fear, right? So like Batman, like I guess the way the movies complement themselves are in Batman Begins, Bruce has to use his fear, become okay with his fear, and then use his fear. And I think he makes a comment to where he says, "It's time for people to share my dread."
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost as if he loses that after he deals with the Joker. And then the Dark Knight Rises, he gets thrown into the pit, and he has to find that again by finding fear.
Mm-hmm.
And what?
And then bats just happen to fly out of a crevice in the pit. While he's standing on the ledge.
Yeah, no kidding.
No one's seen bats in that pit.
It could have been the Arctic where bats don't even live, and they would have come out of that crevice. But all of that to say, I think that there's we're made in the image of God, but we're also sinful by nature due to the fall, and I think that reconciling yourself with the image bearer of God, I guess, is a way to look at it, where finding who you are and your value in Christ, that you were bought and paid for, to be at peace with God, puts you back in the garden. So I guess that's what I would say.
I see a couple things. It looks like to me that they really tried to make resurrection into a theme. So, like, you have Bane break Batman's back, defeat him. So Batman is defeated, and then he's thrown into the pit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think what they're going for is that's the type of that in and of itself is a type of death. So, I mean, you could look at, going down into the pit as symbolism for dying.
Mm-hmm.
And then in order to get back to his people, Batman has to rise. I think that's the point of the title of the movie, right? The Dark Knight Rises. He has to rise out of the pit. He has to rise out of this death. He has to resurrect. He has to come back to life. And then the other point is what?
Just to die again.
Yeah. And so that's the second point. That's why I said I think they tried to make it a theme. Not that they did an incredibly good job, but and then he you think he dies again, right? He seemingly blows up in the bat while he's carrying the bomb, but only to resurrect
as Bruce Wayne.
Right. So I think that they kind of made a theme, and I think that that pairs really well with what we were talking about relating death to the ending of things, like the ending of trilogies, the ending of series, TV shows, like, and all of that stuff, and our hope that things just keep going, like that, because if it ends, then it's done. But I think as Christians, we have the hope of resurrection. We have the hope of death not being the final word. Death is not final,
right?
Because of what Christ did on the cross and his death and his resurrection. We have a hope of a resurrection in Christ, where death has been defeated and death has no power to actually end us. Right? We continue on, and then even in the last days, we resurrect with out of the ground. Even it talks about, and then we're given new bodies and all of that stuff. But we have the hope of resurrection that we can look to and hope for, and not hope like, as in, like, ooh, I hope that comes one day, but like hope as in confidence, as in
a reassurance,
expecting, looking forward to that. So I think that they definitely tried to make that a theme, rising out of the pit, resurrecting from death after saving the city of Gotham. And I also thought they tried and failed, but I think they tried, and that's more so the point, I guess, with Catwoman and the clean slate. They tried to paint the picture that it is possible to get out of your mistakes and your sin. Like there is something that can wipe your record clean.
Right.
And so for the Christian, or for everybody, but in terms of our beliefs as Christians, Jesus is the one who wipes your record clean because he paid the price on the cross for your sin. And when you come to him, Romans, for all who call upon the name of the Lord will be saved. When you call upon him, when you trust in his death and the payment that he provided on the cross, the debt that he paid, you trust and accept that payment, your debt is wiped clean. And you have a completely clean slate for all of eternity, because when God looks at you, he doesn't see the criminal. He sees his son.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jesus' righteousness has been credited to you and given to you. So in that, we have that clean slate that Catwoman was longing for. And because we have that clean slate, we also have the brand new life that Catwoman, Selena Kyle, was longing for.
There it is. That's a good one. It's good stuff. I agree that they did it poorly.
Yeah.
But it's still there.
It is there.
What are we doing next?
I don't know. What do you want to do? Mission Impossible? Or not Mission Impossible. Top Gun?
We can do Top Gun.
The first one, or go ahead and do the new one?
I think we can just skip to the new one.
All right.
Because I think it's better than the old one.
Oh, I agree with you. We'll do that one.
So we'll leave on this. I'll ask you, if you had to rewatch a movie, would you rewatch The Dark Knight Rises or Top Gun?
Top Gun.
Agreed. All right. We'll see you guys next week.